The golden state sun hung low over Highway 1 that Saturday afternoon, painting the ocean a shimmering gold and stretching long shadows across the legendary road. The air, thick with the scent of salt and exhaust. The temperature, a perfect 72 degrees. Drop-tops cruised along the scenic route, their drivers snapping photos of the breathtaking sunset. And weaving carefully through the weekend traffic was a vintage 1965 Harley-Davidson Panhead, its chrome gleaming like liquid silver, ridden by a man who looked like time itself had etched its story on his face. Walter Iron Horse McCready, 70 years young, sported a white beard that cascaded down his chest and hands covered in faded tattoos, each a chapter from a bygone era. He wore a leather vest, so ancient the patches had patches of their own, and his eyes, pale blue behind wire-rimmed glasses, still held the razor-sharp edge of a man who'd seen things most people only read about in history books. He was riding slow, not out of necessity, but because after 53 years in the saddle, he understood that the journey is always greater than the speed. He was one of the 12 founding fathers of the California Hells Angels chapter, back when the club was just a band of brothers, veterans seeking camaraderie after the war. Before we ride any further, if you believe in respecting your elders, in karma's inevitable return, and in the unwavering strength of brotherhood, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because this story is a testament to why you should never judge a book by its cover, especially when that book is written in scars and leather. A sleek black brand-name sports car roared up from behind, its engine growling like an angry beast unleashed. Behind the wheel sat Brandon Whitmore III, all of 24 years old, the privileged son of a Silicon Valley tech billionaire. Sporting sunglasses that cost more than most folks' monthly rent. He'd been sipping bubbly at a yacht party since noon, and now he was running late for another soiree in Malibu. The old geezer on the motorcycle ahead was seriously cramping his style. Brandon slammed on the horn. The Harley didn't flinch. He flashed his high beams. The old man maintained his steady pace. Something snapped in Brandon's champagne-soaked brain. He accelerated, pulled alongside the motorcycle, and punched the button to lower his window. "Move it, Grandpa!" Brandon snarled, his face contorted with entitled rage. "Some of us have places to be." Walter glanced over, said absolutely nothing, and kept riding. That silence infuriated Brandon more than any verbal retort ever could. He swerved the brand-name sports car towards the motorcycle, forcing Walter perilously close to the shoulder. When the old man still didn't react the way Brandon desired, the young man did something that would haunt him for years to come. At the next red light, Brandon leapt out of his brand-name sports car, stormed over to the idling Harley, and shoved Walter McCready off his bike. The 70-year-old hit the pavement hard, his glasses skidding across the asphalt, his vintage Harley crashing down beside him. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd of onlookers. Someone started recording the scene on their phone. "Learn to stay out of the fast lane, old man," Brandon spat, standing over Walter as if he'd just conquered the world. Walter lay there for a moment, not because he was injured, but because he was making a calculated decision. In his younger days, this punk would have learned a very different lesson. But Walter was 70 now. He had grandchildren. He had a legacy to protect. So instead of rising up swinging, Walter did something far more devastating. He smiled. "Son," he said, his voice calm as still water, "you have no idea what you just did." Brandon laughed, hopped back into his brand-name sports car, and sped away toward Malibu, leaving the old man sprawled on the ground and feeling like the undisputed king of the world. He had no clue that 3 people in the crowd were Hell's Angels. He had no idea that within an hour, his license plate, his name, and his face would be circulated to every chapter on the West Coast, and he had absolutely no idea that the old man he had just assaulted was Iron Horse McCready, a living legend whose name was spoken with reverence in every clubhouse from San Diego to Seattle. 48 hours later, Brandon Whitmore III was enjoying Sunday brunch at an exclusive Malibu restaurant when the windows started to rattle. At first, he thought it was a minor earthquake. Then, he heard the engines, deep, thunderous, rolling toward the restaurant like an approaching storm front. He looked outside, and his champagne flute slipped from his trembling fingers, shattering on the pristine marble floor. 500 motorcycles surrounded the restaurant, not circling, not passing through, parked, waiting. Their riders stood beside their bikes, arms crossed, their patches blazing in the midday sun. The entire parking lot, a sea of leather and chrome, and eyes that promised swift and decisive consequences. The restaurant fell silent. Other diners backed away from the windows in fear. The staff froze in place. "Brandon Whitmore III," a voice boomed out from a megaphone. "Step outside, now!" Brandon did not move. His face had turned the color of curdled milk. His hands were shaking so violently he knocked over his water glass. Two Hell's Angels walked into the restaurant, their boots heavy and echoing on the polished floor. They didn't touch Brandon. They didn't need to. They simply stood on either side of him and waited. Brandon rose to his feet on legs that barely supported his weight and walked outside, like a man marching toward his own execution. Walter McCready was waiting for him in the parking lot, standing ramrod straight despite his 70 years, his repaired glasses perched back on his nose, his arms folded across his heavily patched vest. "You pushed me off my bike," Walter said, his voice carrying across the deathly silent crowd, "in front of witnesses, because you thought I was just a slow old man in your way." Brandon opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. "I have been riding these roads since before your father was born," Walter continued. "I helped build this club from 12 men in a garage to a brotherhood that spans the world, and you, a spoiled child with champagne on his breath, thought you could put your hands on me." He stepped closer to Brandon, close enough that the young man could smell the rich leather and see every weathered line etched on that unreadable face. "Here is what's going to happen. You are going to sell that brand name sports car. You are going to donate every single penny to the Veterans Motorcycle Foundation. Then you are going to spend every Saturday for the next year volunteering at the VA hospital in Long Beach, helping men who actually served this country. And you are going to write a public apology that gets posted to every social media platform you have." "What if I refuse?" Brandon whispered, barely audible. Walter smiled that same disarming smile from the pavement. "Then 500 of my brothers standing here will make damn sure your father's company never does business on the West Coast again. We have lawyers too, kid, and unions, and a very long memory." 3 weeks later, a video went viral. Brandon Whitmore III, standing right there in front of the Long Beach VA hospital, publicly apologizing for assaulting a 70-year-old veteran. Behind him, a brand new sign proclaims that the Whitmore Foundation has just donated $2 million to veterans' causes. A huge donation. And watching it all unfold from across the street, perched on his perfectly restored 1965 Panhead, Walter Iron Horse McCready just nodded once, just one time. Then he kicked that engine to life and rode off into that golden state sunset, followed by the deafening thunder, the unmistakable roar of 500 engines saluting a legend, a true legend. And before we wrap things up here, we have one special request for you. Drop a comment down below with these 3 simple words: respect your elders. Show the world you stand with Walter. Because sometimes the person you think is the weakest is actually the one with an army at their back, ready to defend, ready to fight. So here's a question for you straight up. What would you do if you saw some punk disrespecting an elderly rider out there on Highway 1? Let us know in the comments.